Okay, so get this, right? We're going deep on Bitcoin. Bitcoin and the environmental impact, all that stuff.
It's a big one.
It is a big one.
Yeah.
You sent this in, so I'm guessing you're like at least a little bit interested.
Right.
Maybe you've heard some stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe you think you've got it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
Buckle up.
There's a lot of misconceptions out there. When people hear Bitcoin, they think, oh, energy intensive.
Automatically goes to environmental disaster.
Right, and it's way more nuanced than that.
Way more. No, I'd like just to give you one example. The article we're diving into, right off the bat, it throws out this number, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Institutional investors, trillions, and I mean trillions with a T, are ready to put it into Bitcoin. Trillions.
Yeah, they're ready. There's a lot of potential there. But it's this perceived environmental impact, right? That's kind of holding things up.
A roadblock.
Yeah, it's a roadblock. They see what it can do, right? They see the potential to like revolutionize finance. But it's this environmental question mark that has them all like, should we?
Yeah.
Should we really be doing this?
It's not just about like the early adopters and the techies anymore.
Right.
This is like the big money's starting to take notice. And that's when everybody should start paying attention because that affects everyone.
It does.
It really does. It's kind of like, you know, back in the day with the internet, like everybody was like, it's a fad.
Right. It's the same kind of pushback you get with a lot of disruptive technologies.
Totally. How many times have we seen that?
Yeah.
Something new and innovative pops up and people are afraid of it.
And a lot of times that fear comes from not really understanding the technology.
And not being able to like see past the immediate, like, okay, so energy consumption.
Yeah.
That's the elephant in the room.
Yeah, it's a big one. And yeah, there are legitimate concerns there, you know.
Yeah.
Mining Bitcoin does take energy. But one thing this article points out is that a lot of the data that people are using to freak out about Bitcoin's energy use, it's based on like this one academic paper. Yeah, and it's been making the rounds for years, even though it's been debunked, like multiple times debunked.
Wow, it's amazing how that happens. Like misinformation just spreads like wildfire, faster than a Bitcoin transaction.
Right. Like this paper, it really overestimated the energy used per transaction and people just ran with it. But it highlights something really important, especially these days. We've got to be careful about the information we're consuming.
More than ever, critical thinking is key. But, okay, this is where things get really interesting. This article goes on to say that Bitcoin could actually have environmental benefits. Like what?
Right. It's not what you usually hear, but when you look at Bitcoin mining, one of the really interesting things happening is the potential to use methane.
Okay, break that down. Methane, like from cows.
Well, yeah, it's a byproduct of decomposing organic matter, landfills, livestock, even natural gas leaks. And here's the thing. It's way, way worse than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas.
Oh, yeah. Methane is potent stuff.
And Bitcoin mining, it needs a lot of power, right? So some smart folks are like, wait a minute.
Let's use that demand to our advantage.
Exactly. They're capturing that methane. Instead of letting it waft into the atmosphere, they're using it to power their Bitcoin mining operations.
So they're not just like mitigating the impact, they're turning a negative into a positive.
Potentially, yeah. And this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea either. There are companies like Crusoe Energy Systems, Upstream Data, they're already doing this, like at scale.
That is incredible. So the narrative is starting to change a little bit.
It seems like it. Even big publications, the Financial Times, they're starting to see that there's more to this story. Mining Bitcoin can actually be part of the solution to managing methane emissions.
Wow. Okay. So we've gone from like Bitcoin is an environmental disaster to Bitcoin can actually help us save the planet.
That's a bit of a whirlwind, right?
It is. But there's one more piece to this whole puzzle. The article mentions Bitcoin's carbon debt. What is that exactly?
Yeah, good point. Carbon debt. Basically, it's the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with, well, anything, really, over its entire lifespan. So with Bitcoin, you've got the energy used in mining, but also like the resources it takes to make the mining hardware, all of that.
So it's a more complete picture, like looking at the entire life cycle.
Exactly, a holistic view. And get this, the article says that while Bitcoin does have a carbon debt, it might actually pay it off faster than some renewables did back in the day.
Wait, really? Faster than, like, solar panels?
That's what they're saying. Think about it. When solar was first getting going, it was super expensive, energy intensive to produce those panels.
Right.
Took decades for it to get to the point where, you know, it was offsetting more emissions than it took to create it.
Yeah.
And this article argues that Bitcoin, with all the innovation happening, the new, more efficient mining tech,
They could be on that fast track.
Exactly. It's not just about where things stand today, but the direction they're headed, the potential.
So it's like you got to look at the long game, not just the immediate snapshot.
Precisely. Now, in the interest of fairness, I have to say, not everyone's buying this whole carbon debt argument. There are some critics who say, hey, this article is being a little too optimistic. They're worried that as the Bitcoin network gets bigger, the energy consumption could just keep going up.
So there's pushback, which makes sense. I mean, it's a complex issue.
It really is, and that's why it's so important to have these conversations. Look at all sides, consider all the angles, and to be open to new data as it emerges.
For sure. But I've got to say, this whole idea of Bitcoin potentially having a faster carbon payback than something like solar, it really flips the script.
No doubt. It makes you think about Bitcoin's potential beyond just, the environmental stuff or even the whole financial revolution aspect.
Yeah, it's like this could have huge implications for society as a whole.
Right. And the article touches on that too. It digs into this idea that because Bitcoin is decentralized, it doesn't answer to any government or bank. That could be incredibly empowering for individuals.
More control over their own money.
That's part of it. But it's bigger than that. It's about getting rid of those middlemen, making finance more transparent, more accessible, especially in parts of the world where people don't even have access to traditional banks.
So we're talking about potentially lifting people out of poverty, giving them opportunities they never had before.
Exactly. Financial freedom can have a ripple effect, more individual empowerment, maybe even a shift in power dynamics overall.
Wow. So we started with energy consumption, and now we're talking about transforming society.
It's pretty amazing how this one technology has sparked such a wide-ranging conversation, isn't it?
It is. And it just goes to show we're still in the early days here.
We're just beginning to understand what Bitcoin and all these decentralized technologies could really mean for the future.
It's almost like we can see it forming, but we don't know what shape it's going to be.
Yeah, it's still early days, for sure.
It's exciting, though, right? I mean, that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating to me. We're talking about something that could, completely change everything. How we power our world, how our financial systems work, I mean, even how society functions.
Absolutely. And it's all happening so fast. We're witnessing something that could have a bigger impact than, I don't know, maybe even the internet. It's that big.
It's huge. So for you, I mean, you've obviously been following this for a while now. What part of Bitcoin's potential, really gets you fired up? What's the most compelling aspect for you?
Honestly, it's just the sheer possibility of it all, we're talking about a technology that could give individuals more power, make finance fairer, more inclusive, and on top of all that, even incentivize ways to make the world a better, more sustainable place. It's amazing, really.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not like a guaranteed utopia, right?
Of course not. There's no guarantee that any of this will actually pan out the way we hope. There are still challenges, like how do you scale this thing up to handle billions of users? What about regulations? And then there's the big one, making sure everyone has equal access, not just the people who are already plugged in.
Right. So it's not just about the tech. It's about making sure it's used for good.
Exactly. And that's where, these conversations come in. We have to talk about these things, figure out the best way forward. And,
Right.
That's not just on, the developers or the governments. It's on all of us.
Totally. We all have a stake in this. It's like with any new technology, it's not preordained.
Right.
It's what we choose to do with it that matters.
Well said. And for our listener out there, I'd say keep asking those questions, keep learning, and most importantly, stay engaged. Because what happens next with Bitcoin, with all of this, it really is up to us.
Absolutely. Sometimes I feel like we're standing on the edge of something truly incredible. Like we're about to step into the future, and it's both exciting and a little bit scary.
Yeah, for sure.
But hey, that's how progress happens, right? So, to our listener, keep digging deeper, keep that brain engaged. This has been quite the deep dive into Bitcoin, the environment, the future, everything, and it feels like, if anything, we've just scratched the surface. Until next time, keep exploring, and we'll catch you in the metaverse.